Yeah, I think sometimes also maybe because of the time also people could get confused, because our time has been changing a little bit up and down. So again, so we start with quieting our mind by watching our breath mindfully for a few moments. Then we can try to generate a good intention by thinking us coming here together to listen, to discuss. All of that become cause and conditions to understand the Bodhisattva's vows better and to be able to keep them better, more purely. And by keeping those vows purely, may we be able to cultivate the Bodhisattva mind for those who have not actualized and those who have already generated to maintain and increase and improve more and more. And the Bodhisattva mind, supported by the wisdom, realizing emptiness, may we be able to obtain fully enlightened state for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay. To the founder, the endowed, outstanding destroyer, the one gone beyond, the fourth destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge, in good conduct, Sugata, honor of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of God and human beings to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, outstanding destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subdued from the Shakya clay. I prostrate, make offering, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the four destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge, in good conduct, Sugata, nor of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of God, human beings to you, completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subdued from the Shakya plane. I prostrate and make offering and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the fourth destroyer, completely perfected, fully awakened, being perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, nor of the world, supreme God of human beings, became teacher of God and human beings to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subdued from the Shakya plane. I prostrate, make offering, go for refuge. 사시베게 조심에도 나베라리시 이데게 바데 Sangye shindo mi de uwai dokun namada shin shibara sho yidan guru rana mandala rani dayami. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create to listen to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient. Sangye chodang soge sonam la chanchu padu tane. Nage shoshe gibe sonam yola penche sangye dupa. Sangye chodang soge sonam la chanchu padu tane. Nage shoshe gibe sonam yola penche sangye dupa. So we will be discussing about the Bodhisattvas, mainly the root vows. And before we go to that, just to give a little bit once we have studied and learned about the Bodhicitta and Bodhisattva path, and once we have some understanding of Bodhicitta mind and aspiration. Of course, if we can have Bodhicitta mind, that is great. But even we don't have Bodhicitta mind, at least we have some aspirations towards the Bodhicitta mind. And when you have that, then in order to stabilize that aspirations of the Bodhicitta mind and the Bodhicitta, so then we take aspiring Bodhicitta vows. And through having taken the aspiring Bodhicitta vows, then we engage into the practice of not to decline the Bodhicitta mind in this life and not to decline in the future lives. And in terms of not declining this life, then we try to continue to contemplate on the the benefit of the Bodhicitta. The more the more we cultivate incredible benefit or of Bodhicitta mind, then the more we will not like to lose that Bodhicitta mind. We will more like to keep it Bodhicitta mind, And then in order to, that is one practice we try to do, and another practice to keep it alive in this Bodhicitta mind, maintain alive in this life, and to continue to contemplate on the Bodhicitta, meditate on that, and recite Bodhicitta prayers 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the evening. So thereby, each time we recite, we try to connect with the Bodhicitta mind as we reflect, contemplate on that. Then not giving up Bodhicitta, even when other people are not so nice and mischievous and mean and cruel, not giving up. Then in order to again continue to keep the Bodhicitta mind, then engage in the practice of the 2 collections, the collection of merit and the collection of wisdom. Then at the very beginning, focus on the collection of merit through making offering to the holy objects, and making generosity to the those who are in needs, and then in order to maintain the Bodhicitta mind in the future life from declining, then you try to abandon 4 negative dharma and try to engage in the 4 positive dharma. And so I'm not going to go in detail with each of them. Probably if you have the Bodhisattva booklet or the books from the FMD, you can download PDF from there. So then in that there is quite clearly mentioned in that. And so once we have that, then even though we have that aspiring bodhicitta mind, even though it's wonderful to have that aspiring bodhicitta mind, but just by both aspiring bodhicitta mind itself, no matter how powerful, how wonderful, how beneficial it is, just by itself one will not be able to achieve enlightenment unless we actually practice in the Bodhisattva practice, such as 6 perfections. And as you are more aware of that, as we are more aware of that, the need to, enter the path, to the path 10 bhumi, and then engage in practice such as 6 perfections. And once you know, then you have strong determination, aspiration to really practice in the practice such as 6 perfections. And when you have that strong mind, I must practice those 6 perfection or 10 perfections, must. And then when you have that strong mind, then you take the engaging both of vows. And then having taken the engaging both of the vows, then of course, there are 18, then we have to keep 18 root vow, 46 secondary vows. And then mainly the 18 root vows, that is of course the main, those are the root. And then 46 secondary vows, okay? So we will go through the root vows, mainly the root vows. Okay, maybe. So the first root vows, and in terms of a little bit of, I think, background story of the 18 root vows and 46, they are slightly different way of counting the root vows. Of course, we are following mainly from the Lama Tsongkhapa's lineage, and even among Indian commentaries, there are slightly different among different commentaries on those root vows, and definitely Lama Tsongkhapa also rely on those Indian masters' commentaries, and then and they all come from the sutra sources, all those root vows. But in the sutra, it is like all 18 are not in one sutra. Some of them are in another sutra, some of them in another sutras. And so therefore different Indian masters are compiled from different sources of sutras on those vows, So some of them from, Asanga's commentary, Asanga's, writing, Chansa, the ground of the Bodhisattvas, the bhumi of the Bodhisattva. In that writing, then he have some numbers of those root vow in that. But all 18 root vow are not in there. And some of them are you find in the in Shantidevas, the continuum trainings. So, and again they all rely on different sutras, So that is a little bit for the background, So there is slightly, there can be slightly different, numbers and a little bit, not only among the Tibetan master, but also among the Indian scholars and masters, of that. But again, those root vows, definitely, again, you find all of them in sutra, but different sutras, some of them in different sutras, so that is a little bit of the background of the Bodhisattva vows, okay? The way Lama Tsongkhapa explained, the first 4 root vows coming from the Asanga's Changsa, the bhumi or the ground of the Bodhisattva's path, and then others mainly from other sources, mainly the Shantidevas and so forth. So within the first root vows, and then again for those root vows, one of the things is in order to break those root vows, of course, it has to be someone who have received those vows and so those who have received the vows and then the person has to be mentally stable. If someone is mentally unstable, then maybe before when you took the vows, you are mentally stable, and then somehow you have something problems, and someone become mentally stable, then it doesn't come to the breaking of the root vows, because that person is cannot think properly, and so therefore, for that, that is the one of the thing that it need to be okay. So in terms of the root vows, the first one is the vows of praising oneself and criticizing or belittling others. Okay. That can be counted as two vows. Here is counted as one vows, but sometimes they count as a two. One vow is praising oneself, the other is belittling or criticizing others. And there is some discussions. When you count four, it is said because of the motivations, it becomes four. In terms of the action, it becomes 8. It's a different act. Each of those vows are two different acts. Praising is a different act, and belittling is a different act. Belittling or criticizing, so it is two. But in terms of the motivation, is the same motivations. So from the motivation point of view, it becomes 4. From the action point of view, then it becomes 8. Not the first 4 one I'm saying. Okay. So normally we count 2 of them as one because of from the point of view of the motivation point of view. Okay. So in terms of the first vows, out of a strong attachment to either material things, out of attachment to material things. That could be food, that could be shelter, that could be clothes, that could be any of material things, or being attached to service, people admirations and service to you, out of attachment to either those material things or such as service and admirations, then you praise yourself. You praise yourself in order to gain those objects you are attached to. Okay. Out of attachment to gain whatever you are attached to, for that purpose, in order to gain the object you are attached to, then you praise yourself, talking about your own positive qualities, good qualities. On the other hand, again, in order out of attachments, and in order to gain those objects of your attachments, whatever you are attached to, whether it's a material things or service or administrations, then you try to put down someone by belittling, criticizing, and by pointing their faults, their weakness, their shortcomings. Okay? The motivation to put someone down, criticizing, belittle it down, talking about their weakness, their faults, mistake, and so forth. The motivation is by putting them down that there is something for you to gain that you are attached to. Are we clear here? So that should be the motivation to break these vows. The motivation has to be that one. If your motivations is anger, and out of anger, if you criticize someone, you belittle someone, you put them down, then it is not the breaking of the root vows, the first root vows. Because the motivation is not out of attachments, Here, the motivation has been attachments. So that will be more, in one of those secondary vows, if the motivation is doing same thing, but out of other motivations, not the attachments. So for first vows, the motivation has to be attachment for praising yourself or for belittling, putting down others. If you do that out of attachments, so then that is why, and also, to gain those things out of attachments, for yourself, if you do that in order to help someone, to gain something in order to help someone, then again, it doesn't complete the breaking of these vows completely. Okay, so it has to be yourself, being attached for yourself, out of attachment for yourself, So that is in terms of the and so whether you praise oneself out of those attachments, or whether you put down someone, criticize someone, then someone has to hear that. Even you do that, if there's no one to hear, if no one hear that, then again, it doesn't complete the actions to breaking down of these vows. Okay. So not out of attachments. For example, if you talk about your own experience, good experiences, your own realizations, your own some positive qualities, that it could help someone out of compassion, to help someone, to inspire them, to give them encouragement. If you do that, then that is not breaking of the vows, because the motivation is not attachment, but the motivation is to help someone, to give them some encouragement, to give them some confidence, And so if that is the case, if that is the motivation, then that is not breaking the vows, And sometimes also, out of compassions, to help that person, to subdue that person with a compassion, sometimes even you kind of put them down a little bit, because it might help them from being too arrogant. If your compassion's out of compassion, then do that again, is not breaking the vows, And sometimes you see the Bodhisattvas sometimes do that when they see the way to help that person, to kind of help them to overcome their pride, unhealthy pride, arrogant, because they think they are, you know, they are just perfect, they are most important, they know everything, and sometimes they need to be put on grounded, and sometimes that can be done, but the motivation is to help them, benefit them. So the motivations is very important factors here, breaking vows, not just the actions, not the just actions of praising oneself and putting down or belittling others, Mm. Then sometimes you see that, I think just give one example. I think maybe that might be, I, hopefully that is the right example that I'm trying to give. Sometimes, for example, His Holiness talk about, about his sharpness of his mind. Sometimes he talk about that, sometimes he talk about, that he says, he has sharp mind, that he can, even though he didn't learn science as normal educations, but when he has a discussion with the scientists, he's able to kind of come with a lot of cautions, and that even the scientists are not thought about before, he kind of shocked them, with the caution that he asks, that there's something they have never even thought about before, and sometimes they are unable to answer in that moment, because they have not reflected. There's something, so that kind of thing, His Holiness, that, and sometimes he talk about that too, he said because of the training in the debate, that is when he tried to encourage the people that the importance of the debate. And because of that training, that he have that kind of mind. And so to bring that kind of mind, even in other field, and that is why he says, so, so in a way, sometimes it feels like it's praising himself. Do you get it? But he's talking about his sharp mind, his qualities of that, because in order to give more encouragement, confidence to the students, why the importance of debate and all of that, because it helps to sharpen your mind. When you have that kind of mind, then you begin to have way of cautioning in everything, and that help in your life, in every field, and so not only dharma, but whether you are a doctor, whether you are a scientist, whether you are a teacher, whether you are an engineer, if you have that kind of critical mind, it helps you, and so therefore that is, so sometimes he shared those that kind of things, in order to help and benefit others, to give encouragements, And also sometimes he talk about his, spiritual experiences sometimes that you have heard, in recent years, I think, I don't know, maybe last 15, 20 years, he have started to share some of those experiences, about, bodhicitta, wisdom realizing emptiness, he talked about, all of that, which he didn't share earlier, very early, before that, I don't remember exactly when he started doing that, but not long ago, and but I think he started sharing those his spiritual experiences because there have been a lot of cautions, when his teachings and public talks and so forth, audience asking his cautions about his experience, about his spiritual experiences. And before he used to say, I'm just ordinary, I'm just a beginning, I'm just an ordinary, and like that. But after sometimes at many occasions, many of the students ask, even you have been, even if that is case, for what is hope for us? There's no hope for us now. And that is how people felt. You are the kind of the highest kind of, our, especially in Tibetan Buddhism, you are the highest in that. And even you don't have realizations, even after all this practice and all that, then what chance we have? What hope we have? That was how some of the audience felt when they heard that about him saying that. And I think His Holiness, since then, I think he has been sharing more of his spiritual experiences, a little bit more than before, because it helps others to have more encouragement, more confidence, in their practice, towards the practice. So again, so talking about your own positive qualities, talking about your own positive qualities does not always means you are breaking these vows. What motivation, what you are doing that? That is the key. Yes, Eloise?
Had to get unmuted. So Geshe-la, if I were to say to someone, oh, let me do that because I'm really good at it and you're not as good at it, whatever it is, as me, is that breaking the vow? Am I being attached to the fact that I'm good at it and this other person's not as good at it? Or is it not breaking the vow because it's just practical?
It's practical. It doesn't necessarily be out of attachments. Attachments here, the breaking the vows is by doing that. There is something you gain. There is something you are attached to. Maybe you are attached to something, and you have something to gain. Out of something to gain the object you are attached to, and for that purpose, that is why you do that. So definitely, so in that cases, it is not like that you are trying to gain something by saying that, from that person or from someone. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, I think those are, it is important to know all these details. Otherwise, when you first look, praising oneself and belittling or criticizing others, it seems it is so easy to break. But when you know detail, then it is, not as easy or as frequent that we break all the time of these vows, because there are many, many conditions that need to come together and complete in order to actually have this breaking of these root vows of the first one. So, so that is why, I think it helped us to be less scared of taking the both of the vows, less scared of breaking the both less scared of taking the both of vows. And secondly, to have more confidence in ourselves and our practice, by knowing that, yes, I did criticize someone, Yes, I did praise myself a little today, but I didn't really break the vows because all this, I didn't do it out of attachments, I didn't do out of that. So then we don't be too harsh on ourselves. Do you get it? Sometimes we can be very harsh on ourselves. Oh, I can't even keep the vows. I even broke the first vows. I couldn't even keep it. What chances I have? I'm not a good practitioner, so and so on. But when you really go in detail and when you really know the details, then you didn't actually fully broke the vows, and so yeah, it has to be human beings, yeah. um, Not in this particular one, but in some others, Lama Tsongkhapa says in the many of the Indian commentary, he doesn't see whether it has to be human or not, but Lama Tsongkhapa says it make more sense, and it should be same beings. So that is human beings, So yeah. So that is the first one, okay? That's the first vows. That's the first vows. Now the strength and meditation. Second vows is not giving. Not giving material things and Dharma knowledge when someone asks for you, someone asks for that, when someone asks for that help. Okay. Again, also here there's two, here too. One is not giving the material things, the other is not sharing or giving the Dharma knowledge. So in terms of, again, actions, there are two different things. Okay. And so again, in order to, for example, the object is, someone who is lack of basic necessity, who are suffering due to the lack of basic needs. So those who ask for help, those who are, starving, who doesn't have enough to eat and drink, so who are starving, those who have been in prisons, and or kind of, who doesn't have any protectors, help, who are by themselves, no one to take care of them, no one to look after them, who are in those kind of conditions, So like those kind of, when this kind of people come and ask for help sincerely from their heart, when they ask for help is sincerely from their heart, and they are in that conditions, they really need the help, and they ask for your help, and you have the resources and ability to help. If you don't have resources, even someone asks and you are unable to give, then that is not breaking the vows. Okay. In these cases, you have the resource to be able to help them. Okay. You have the resource to be able to help them. And in terms of them, they're really asking. They are in real that condition, and they are really asking from the depth of their heart for that. And the other conditions is, I think, another important here conditions, in order to relieve the suffering of that person's, of their pain, if there is no other someone who can help them than yourself. Do you get it? So again, it becomes more difficult to break these vows, you know. If there's no one who can, there's no one who can relieve their suffering, you are the only one who can relieve their suffering at the moment, then they ask for your help. And if you don't do that, that is the problem, you know. But if there's someone else who can relieve their sufferings, not at this point, and if you don't help, then of course, is, you know, it is not the kindest, but still in terms of breaking the root vows, then it doesn't, it has to be where, you know, there's no one others than yourself at the moment to relieve of their suffering, you know. So that is another conditions, you know. And whatever they ask for in terms of the objects, you know, if someone asks for a help for a weapon, if you don't give the weapon, it's not breaking the vows, you know. If someone asks for something that is harmful for them, you know, to misuse, whether it's abuse substances, you know, someone who is alcoholic asking for alcohol, someone who is drug addict asking for the drugs, or other resource to use abuse them. So again, in that cases, you know, if you don't give that, if you don't help with that object, even they ask for that, again, it's not breaking the vows, you know, because it has to be, the object has to be something that doesn't hurt and harm them, you know. The objects that they are asking has to be something that it doesn't harm them. Yes, Mary Jo, you have some questions?
Yes. Sometimes in the local scene, there's somebody like maybe in the Walmart parking lot and they need money for gasoline or something, they say. And I have friends, I mean, we talk about this. Sometimes you think they're going to use it for alcohol or drugs, but no, those people usually don't say, I'm going to be using it for alcohol or drugs. And sometimes there's no way of knowing that. And that's a little different than needing gasoline for your car. And of course, you're not the only person there, but I know that Venerable Robina one time said, if somebody comes to you to ask for money, there's a strong karmic connection and you should give them money. And so anyway, I would like your thoughts about that. Maybe not so much regarding breaking the vows as just being appropriate.
Yeah, you know, I think if we don't know, then of course it's better to help. But if we know that they are going to misuse it, then, you know, misuse it and it is going to hurt them, harm them, then I think not giving is just fine, you know.
Yeah.
But of course, if we don't know, then that is the thing, you know. Of course, you know. But if there's somehow we know that they will misuse it, you know, and that is why some people, when they're asked, you know, instead of giving money, they will go and give the food, you know.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you know,
Yeah.
because they're asking for a food, you know, so instead, so you just go and buy a food, and so yeah, so that is how some people do that, you know.
Yes, thank you. That's good. Yes.
And then so that is in terms of the object that they're asking, and in terms of the person yourself, you know, you have the resource yourself, you know, someone who have the resource to help. And then in terms of the motivations, you know, we don't help and we don't give even when they ask because of stinginess or miserliness. Okay, in order to break these vows. So you are not helping, you are not giving out of stinginess and miserliness, you know. So the motivation has to be that stinginess and miserliness, you know. And out of that miserliness or stinginess, you know, not only not giving, then it says, you know, you make a decisions to strong decisions not to give, you know. Do you get it? Sometimes we don't give and we think, should I give or not give? Maybe I will think about it, you know. Sometimes we don't come to a decision and I will not give it. But sometimes our mind is in a kind of struggle, you know. Should I give or not give, you know? Maybe I have to think about it, you know, whether it's helpful, beneficial, all of that, you know. When you have that kind of mind, when you don't make decision not to help, not to give, then you are, again, not breaking the vow itself. In order to break the vow itself, you have to make that kind of strong decisions, you know, that you are not going to help, you are not going to give for whatever help they are asking, you know. Because sometimes people ask help and sometimes we don't give at that moment, but sometimes we come home and we think about it and maybe we might help later, you know. So because we are willing to think about it and whether to help or not, but we didn't make the decision that we will not help. And so to break the vows, that is how it is, you know, you make the decisions not to help, not to give, you know. So that in terms of the, so that is one of the, again, the factors, you know. And according to some of the earlier Tibetan masters, some of the other commentaries, you know, not only you need to, from your side, not only you need to decide or make decision not to give, but from the also other person who's asking for the help, from that person, they have to lose the hope of not getting any help. But Lama Tsongkhapa said that is, you know, he didn't see that source in any of the Indian commentaries, you know, for that explanation. And that is one of the unique of Lama Tsongkhapa. What I like. He always check whether there is a source or earlier teachings of Indian master or not. If there is no sources to authentify that from the earliest that, then, you know, even it is said by some of the great Tibetan masters, you know, of that time, or that, you know, he will not necessarily immediately kind of accept that, you know. And I think, and that helps to keep the teachings more purity from the Buddha's time and the old Indian masters, instead of someone who become famous and they started to make their own, you know. Someone who become well-known and who have a lot of followers, then they started to make their own things, even though there's no really sources in the earliest, you know. And so then there could be a danger of the teaching being kind of, you know, kind of diluting, intentionally or unintentionally, kind of being diluted, you know. And so that is where Lama Tsongkhapa always try to see whether when there is some explanation of that, he try to go back to the earlier sources of Indian masters, see whether, and then even go back to the suttas, you know. So that is, and then in terms of the Dharma knowledge, it is the same, you know. You have the Dharma knowledge, you know, and someone asks for that knowledge, you know, someone asks for that knowledge, help for that knowledge, you know, and they're not sharing it. You have the knowledge and they are asking sincerely from their heart. If they are not asking sincerely from their heart, again, it might not be breaking fully the vows, but they're sincerely asking for the knowledge. you know. And the motivation why you are not sharing the knowledge, why you are not giving the knowledge, is because, again, out of stinginess and out of miserliness, you don't want to share because you want to keep for yourself. You know, you want to keep for yourself. You know, you don't want to share. But if it's other motivations, you know, sometimes people ask, but they are not sincere about it. So if that is the cases, then of course, it's not breaking the root vows, because you know they are not asking sincerely, not coming sincerely from their heart. And sometimes, you know, you are unable to give because sometimes the teachers or anyone, they might think they are not suitable for that teachings at the moment. They are not ripened for that. They are not suitable. So, you know, in that cases, not sharing the knowledge, that particular knowledge someone is asking, not because of you don't want to share or because of that, but you feel that person is not suitable at the moment, you know. So in that cases, you know, because when they are not suitable and when you share, instead of being helpful, it can be sometimes harmful, you know. Yeah, that is important, you know. They have to be in the right stage where they are suitable to receive that particular knowledge, that particular teaching, that particular whatever empowerment, whatever, you know, vows and so forth, you know. Mm. Because sometimes people ask, you know, those different spiritual practices, teachings, empowerments, and vows without really knowing well and without really foundations, good foundations. And when you don't have those good foundation and without really knowing that if you give them, it might hurt them more than helpful, you know, because they don't really understand the meaning of that, you know, and then it creates a lot of negative karma in relation to that. Sometimes people go and receive all kind of initiation without knowing anything, and afterwards they don't even know they have taken those vows, both of the vows. They are not even aware they have taken tantric vows, and they are constantly breaking them because they don't know that they have taken it. They don't know what they are, and they are breaking all these vows. So it didn't help them. It only hurt them because they are creating so much negative karma. They're breaking them all the time. You know, and that is because, you know, they don't have the good foundations. They haven't reached where they have understanding what they are getting into. You know, so that in those, like for those are examples, some examples where, you know, even someone asks, you know, so to break this one, it has to be, the motivation has to be, you know, the miserliness, stingy, not wanting to share it, because if you share, you feel like, you know, that person might be more you know, more greater practitioner yourself, or more expert than yourself, or whatever, you know, those different things. So out of that, you know, out of that stinginess, not sharing it. So that is the vows. There is one. Gisela, I know nothing, but sometimes people ask. I don't want to answer incorrectly, so I ask them to ask you or other teachers. This isn't breaking the vows. No, you know, it isn't breaking the vows because it isn't breaking the vows because my phone alarm is going for the next class. It's a reminder. Yeah, it's not breaking vows because, you know, it's not that it's not, you know, you have the knowledge, you know that you have that, and then out of stinginess, you are not sharing because you are not confident whether you know it or not, whether you have the knowledge or not to answer correctly or not, you know. So that is not a breaking the vows. But also, you know, sometimes you even you know, you can give your answer according to your understandings, you know, sometimes, and can say that is what I understood. I could be mistake, I could be wrong, but that is my, if I'm not mistaken, this is how I understand, how my understanding. But in order to be more clear with that, maybe you can ask some others, you know, some others, more senior students or teachers, you know. So, but at the same time, you know, yeah, I think that should be just fine, you know, to those, especially those you know, you have studied enough that you know, um, yeah, of course there are certain topics that we don't know, you know. There are many things that I don't know, and when I don't know, I say I don't know, you know. That's what I don't know, you know. So, and then third one, and the third one is not forgiving others and harboring grudges. Also, this has two, again, you know, not forgiving when someone apologizes and sincerely asks for forgiveness. Then others is holding grudges, resentment or grudges, and out of that, then, you know, hurting and harming them, you know. So also within that, there is that. So in terms of, you know, not forgiving when someone asks forgiveness, you know. So when someone has hurt us, when someone has hurt us, you know, when someone hurt us, so someone who had hurt us, you know, and then later they realize, you know, the hurt that they have done, and they regret whatever, you know, and they sincerely from their heart, you know, they sincerely want to, they sincerely feel sorry and apologize. They sincerely, you know, not just kind of saying artificially, you know, sometimes we can artificially say I'm sorry, but not sincerely, you know. But when someone sincerely, you know, feel, you know, bad about that they hurt you, and then sincerely they ask for, they apologize, and they ask for forgiveness, you know, sincerely, according to the time, according to the how, you know, there is a way to ask for forgiveness, you know. You just can't say forgive me, you know. That is not the way to ask for forgiveness. Do you get it? There is a certain way to ask. There is a certain way to ask for forgiveness. So sincerely from their heart asking for forgiveness, and the way they ask is according to how it should, according to that, sincerely asking, Mm. But even when they said, even though they ask for that forgiveness, uh, out of anger for the hurt and harm they did to us, out of anger, harm to both with that, and and not letting it go, and holding the grudges and resentment, still not letting go of that, even when they ask, the way is not listening to them when they ask forgiveness, not listening to them, and from the heart, mind, not letting go of that grudges, not letting go of that resentment. Mm. So forgiveness is that letting go of that grudges, that resentment. That is the main thing. Forgiveness is that. If we still haven't let go of the grudges and resentment for whatever they have done to us, that means we have still not fully forgiven them. Not fully forgiven them. If we still have some level of grudges and resentment from that, their actions of the past, So that is the other ones is again, because someone hurt you, harm you, then you get angry, upset and angry, and sometimes we say bad things back to them, harsh word. And even after having used a harsh word, still not being satisfied, and still holding the anger, still holding the anger, still holding the anger. And that out of that anger, sometimes we might hit them, sometimes we might, put them in prisons, and so there are so many, hit them with our physical hand or other objects, and so that is, so that is totally being, your mind totally being overwhelmed by such a strong anger for their harmful or hurtful actions. And so that is yeah. And so again, here, same thing, it has to be human being to break these vows. It has to be human beings. The objects, other objects, Mm. Yeah, so I think maybe today we kind of stop here. So any questions, any comments, questions so far?
Geshe-la, I have a question
Yes, please.
on the one that we're just talking about here. So the motivation for that one is always anger.
Yeah, anger, grudges, resentment, they're all a part of kind of anger, it's kind of anger family, all of them. They are slightly different, but they are angry family.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So the motivation has to be that, not forgiving, is that. And sometimes, if you are kind of not, when they try to ask for forgiveness and would apologize, and if you are not trying to listen, or if you are not trying to pay attention, because maybe you want to help them to understand, they don't make that mistake again. So even though you have no anger, even though you have no grudges, even though you have no resentment from what they did, but maybe because you want them to learn something, sometimes people might not act as though they are not forgiving, but if you don't have grudges and anger and resentment, then you have forgiven that person, no matter what your external action, how you show it, you know. On the other hand, you know, you show the act of having forgiven. Okay, I forgive you. We say, I forgive you. I have no problem now, but still if we have grudges and resentment still, that means we are not fully forgiven them. Yes, Eloise.
So, Geshe-la, I get asked, I have requests for money by political organizations and animal organizations that help various animals. I get probably 20 solicitations a day. And so sometimes I just say, I'm not giving. You know, I can't give to everybody. Now, the truth is, I could probably give everybody $1 or $2 or $3, but I don't. You know, and from time to time I do. You know, that's why they keep coming back to me, because I do. But I can't do it every single time they ask, although I probably could. So I don't know. So is that miserliness? And it is a determination. I am not going to give today. You know, that's my determination. So is that breaking the vow?
Well, you know, of course, there is part of, as we talk about, there are many conditions that need to come together to break the vow fully, or downfall, in order to have the downfall of that vows.
Mm-hmm.
One of the conditions we talk about, as Lama Tsongkhapa explained, is that there is no others who can help them than yourself. So in some cases, at that time, that condition might not be meeting there to have the full kind of breakdown. But again, you know, I think regardless of whether we are breaking the vows or not, downfall, again, I can see, even though we can help them, as we mentioned, by providing $1, $2, $3, but also we know we are also worried about constantly getting that every time, all the time, is kind of so, you know, it's a little bit complicating, you know, especially now with this modern technologies. You know, in the past, people have to come to you, and now they just send an email or just papers, you know.
Right.
and sometimes, you know, and so it becomes more complicating, you know, from that point of view. But of course, if we can give, then it's better. But in terms of breaking the vows, then of course, you know, there are certain conditions which does not meet there, or all the conditions are not necessarily met there in that cases. You know.
Okay.
Okay, so I think and yeah, and also it is, and sometimes also, you know, of course we can help them, but also we have to make a decisions where I want to help more, you know. And so as long as we're helping somewhere, you know, I don't know whether because everyone has their kind of something that they want to really support and help, you know, and they don't have to help everyone, and so in those cases you have to make the choice. So so then again, that makes a little bit kind of not so easy. Yeah. Because as much as I can help each of them with $1, $2, $3, but then maybe I might not be able to help a project or something that I really care and I want to help them, then I wouldn't have enough to help that project or whatever that is, So then it kind of become a little bit tricky and difficult in that way, and that is sometimes how I feel myself too, Sometimes I think, I could give $5, $2, $3 here, but then also I think, or if I help that in the other part of the country, it makes huge difference. It might not make any difference here in organization, as organizations, $5 might not make much difference, but one part of the country that could make a huge difference. $20 here might not make a huge difference, but in that part of the country, that $20 can support one person's education for a month, and that is and so, so from that point of view, then your mind is kind of thrown away, I can give here, then which will help a little bit, but it doesn't make huge differences. On the other hand, I mean, ask and I don't give here, but I could help there, which could make a huge differences for one person and hopefully the whole families as that children grow up with a better education, better job. And that could change the situation, the whole family as well. So, so then in those cases, that's where you have to make that your mind kind of make decisions. And again, it is hard to follow everything as easily as, wish we could, we have the ability to do that and not to reject anyone's help and to be able to support everyone's from anywhere who asks for help. But sometimes that is a struggle I have, kind of to make those kind of decisions, yeah. And so definitely from that perspective, I'm not being able to give to everyone who asks. So I'm also in that categories. So I'm not different from that. But definitely my motivation is to help some way, someone. But it is not that I couldn't help anyone who asks. So that is the problem. Yeah. Even though I could do that, but that would mean I would not be able to help the others as much as I would like to. So that is the thing. Yeah. Okay, we'll do the dedications. Due to the merits of this virtuous action, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel Bodhisattva that is not arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Jite kamde pende malu ba kangle chungwe sambe yeshe no katin chungme tenzin jatso la sowa deso tuche lundo sho. Tozo changshin chamkun gyave tenzin jompe we kuru do waze chosun kuwe le mo tutu pa da so du je gwendo shapen sho. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you